All right, before we do anything else, I've got to address something. I've had some concerned messages from some viewers that because with the series, I'm opening these out of bottles, and if you've watched any of my videos other than this series, you'd know I'm usually drinking beer from cans, and every time I open up a can, there's a visual sound effect. There's a sound cue you get. There's usually a or a. I mean, even if I'm doing a bottle with a cork in it, I get a. But with using this wall-mounted beer opener that I have here, that I do for all these, there's been a real issue that we're not getting a sound effect. So I've played with the settings. I hope it's all going to work out today. I hope we get a sound effect. I'm going to try my best. Let's see what we can do. Let's hope this works. Hey everybody, welcome to One Flight Down Basement Beer Tastings and part 3 of our Home Brews series. This is the third of 6 beers that were donated to the show by Chris Rampich, a Winnipeg home brewer. And if you are enjoying this series, I'll leave links to the first couple of episodes from this series in the description below. The first one we did an English bitter, which was very, very good. We did a Weiss beer last time, which I really enjoyed. Actually, maybe even more than the first one. And today we're going to be doing a California Common. So California Common is not actually a very common beer to find. It's not a style that I've seen a lot of breweries do. Here in Winnipeg, we have like around, we're close to 30 breweries in our city. Over 30 in the province now, and I've only really seen maybe 2 that have done an attempt on a version of a California Common. And it's not, I mean, I've traveled to breweries in different cities, and it's not something I see very often. It's a style that came out of San Francisco. Anchor Steam is the most famous California Common, considered the gold standard of California Commons. It is a fantastic beer. The California Common is typically brewed with lager yeast, but fermented at an ale fermentation temperature. It is typically an amber-colored beer with a malt character to it, and tends to have a higher carbonation to it. So Chris told me that this is his second go-round of making a California Common. He said the first turned out really well. He's not quite as happy with this one, but he still gave me one, and he's still letting me talk about it on the show. So I appreciate that, Chris. Thank you very much. We're going to try that right now. Let's get into this beer. I'm even getting a bit of maltiness on the nose from the bottle. So, yeah, with my weak sense of smell, that's encouraging. So, as I said, these usually come out pretty amber in color. You're definitely getting that here. A few floaties in there, but I'll live. It's funny, I got a heavier smell out of the bottle than I did after pouring it, which is interesting. I'm just going to try and activate that a little, see if there's any, swirl it around, see if there's any kind of anything out of that. Yeah, not getting a lot on the nose, to be honest. But yeah, color-wise, it is, a hazy amber. I don't know if you can see the carbonation on this in that light, but it's pretty active. I'm not sure. Try this. But it is quite carbonated, quite active. Chris did mention too that the one thing he's not been happy with the home brewing so far is getting a good head retention, which I mean that seems to be the case with this one. There's not a lot of head on it, but let's go in for a sip, see how this is. So it's really good, but it's not like what I would expect from. It doesn't really compare to the Anchor Steam, the sort of gold standard of California Commons. I'm not. The mouthfeel is a lot different. It's not quite as bubbly. There's a real there's like a, I don't know how to describe it. Almost like there's a creaminess, but at the same time a bit of like a thin bubbliness. It's a very unique mouthfeel, and this doesn't quite have that. It does have the creamy side to it, though, for sure. One of the local breweries in Winnipeg that I mentioned that does a variation on the California Common is Non-Such Brewery, and they call it the Prairie Common, using, I guess it's the same brewing techniques, but brewed like using ingredients found locally in Canadian prairies. This does remind me a bit of that. But yeah, tastes good. Just, yeah, for me, the mouth feels off a bit from I think because I had that certain expectation. But at the same time, Chris kind of warned me that this one didn't quite turn out the same as when he made it the first time. I just want to go to his notes here on the ingredients. So the malts are Pilsner, Munich, Crystal, and Torrefied, which is what he uses for head retention. The hops, Northern Brewer, and the yeast is yeast 2112, which is considered well suited for California lagers. He says what's very critical with this beer, with this style of beer, is to control the temperature. He said he kept it at 16 to 17 Celsius until fermentation was complete, and then allowed it to rise to 20 before bottling. Traditionally, this beer is done in the cool air of San Francisco, and this dates back to before refrigeration. And that's why the fermentation should be kept at a certain temperature. He said that last year he made the common to end all commons. He said it had the perfect balance, a perfect mouthfeel. But he was brewing in a... Hold on a second. It was brewed very much in a panic. He had made some calculation errors and was correcting with dried malt extract on the fly. So he doesn't feel like he'll be able to recreate that because it wasn't perfectly following a recipe. He had to kind of make corrections as he went, and that's kind of how it turned out the way it did, which apparently was spectacular. So I hope he gives this another shot, though. This is still a pretty tasty beer. So yeah, overall, it's not got a lot of hoppiness to it. It does have a very strong malt flavor. The mouthfeel isn't quite there, but it's still a pretty darn tasty beer. So we've got 3 more beers coming up in this series. The next one is going to be a porter, I think an English-style porter, if memory serves. And then we get into a couple more experimental ones, and I'm going to try and bring Chris in for a little bit of insight on at least one of those before this series wraps up. Till next time, everybody, cheers. See you all again soon.
I'm tired and I need to go home.